August was another bad month for layoffs, and not just in the tech sector, but in many other sectors as well. So I have two different articles to go over with you today. One will focus on some of the latest layoffs and firings in the world of tech, but also bigger than that, and we'll see the numbers and what's going on with other firms outside of technology. They say once you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to look but up. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we've hit rock bottom yet. And I don't know what exactly is going to finally cause us to hit rock bottom. If people are really struggling this much with getting a good quality job, you would think maybe the stock market would reflect that. But it doesn't move and correlate as much as one would think it does. Also, if things are this tough, well, maybe an interest rate cut will help, but that hasn't helped so far. And I don't really know what the answer is, because when you think that an organization is finally at a skeleton crew of employees, they go and lay off some more people. I mean, what is really the bare bones of how many employees an employer needs before they hit the panic button? And there seems to just be all kinds of different spins on what's going on. They can label employees underperformers. They can say that this is a normal yearly thing that they do, and it's perfectly okay and good business to lay off anywhere between 2 and 7% of your workforce each and every year. Even if they happen to also lay off additional employees outside of that, they can give reasons around why this is happening, saying, oh, it's just because we want to invest in AI. We're doing business with other companies. We're investing in smaller startups. There are all kinds of excuses that are being bandied about, but it really doesn't solve our main problem here. The main problem being the fact that the average American worker is really struggling now. And no political candidate seems to really be too interested in solving it. There really aren't many big-time companies who have the budget and resources to go and hire and grow right now doing anything about it. And when are we really going to see this rock bottom where, okay, finally there's some relief and things aren't going to get any worse than they currently are? And what is going to solve it? Is it the presidential election? It just seems like things are at a perfect storm right now where interest rates are too high. The amount of fake jobs being posted are way too high, where really it doesn't seem like these employees are even hiring at all. All they're doing is simply finding a way to steal your data and sell it to other companies. The cost of living is too high, from rent costs going up way too high, and even things like mortgages. Even if you're in a good mortgage and that's a fixed rate, well, property taxes and HOAs and other kinds of insurance and fees associated with your house continue to go up. And even just eating in general. There are no such things as like cheap fast food restaurants anymore, because McDonald's or Wendy's can somehow be in line with a sit-down restaurant, especially if you go for a lunch special. And then groceries. I mean, people could say, well, it's supply chain issues, it's cost of materials. They could say with a fast food restaurant or any restaurant in general, it's the cost of labor. Well, okay, then what is the solution? It just doesn't seem like there is any sort of solution or any sort of hope right now. And the main thing that people need is money, because we can say that, oh, these things are too expensive and people can cut back on spending, but what do you really want them to do? Without a quality job, without a job at all in a lot of people's scenarios, how are you supposed to do anything? Even if you go and move into your car, even if you just eat from the dollar store, well, the $1.25 store, you still need to have some level of income to avoid just completely being out in the streets, living under a tent under a bridge. So there's a lot of layoffs going on, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. And let me know in the comments down below if you have any ideas or suggestions about things that could finally end this layoff catastrophe of 2024. Let's dive in. The first article of the day is from Business Standard. And as always, my articles that I talk about are listed down in the description below, so you can read the full thing for yourself. I'm just going to go over the highlights and talk about what pertains to our conversation we're having today. The headline is Tech Layoffs 2024. Tech companies lay off over 27,000 employees in August. The article goes on to say, the tech sector witnessed a significant increase in job losses in August. With over 27,000 employees affected, major tech firms, including Intel, IBM, and Cisco, along with more than 40 smaller startups, announced substantial layoffs. So far this year, the industry has seen over 136,000 tech professionals laid off across 422 companies. So even with numbers like that, how could you feel like people are too lazy to work, that people don't want to work? And maybe people aren't as motivated to apply for jobs where you have to go through all these hurdles and all these obstacles, like talking to basically a robot on one end, like a one-end interview where you don't actually talk to a person, having to give your references upon applying. I mean, there's scams out here that are asking for people's social security number. You know that when you sign up for jobs, you're all of a sudden now getting all of these emails from other things. Like I got an email from like guns.com the other day, like why I'm applying to these jobs and all I'm getting now are spam emails and spam texts as opposed to actually getting legitimate job leads. And it's not just one company. In tech alone, it's over 422 different companies doing layoffs. So it's not like, oh, 4 or 5 companies aren't doing well. No, 422 companies laying off people in one single year that equates to over 136,000 people is a lot of people. This is a significant data set, and this signals a significant issue and a significant problem with what's going on, even if we see official government reports saying everything's fine, nothing's ever been better. This is all a lie because we know the real data here because we go over it, and there's a major problem, whether any politician or any other person wants to believe it or not. And obviously, you can't say that everybody in the country is struggling. We're in a capitalistic society. People are going to make a lot of money, and that's fine, good on them. But that doesn't mean that a significant amount of people are not still struggling. Both things can be true at the same time. The rich can keep getting richer, and the middle class can keep disappearing, all in the same country. The article goes on to say that Intel announced a memo to its employees that it'll be cutting 15,000 jobs. And this is a topic that we covered in another video. If you want all the details on that, go and check out my Intel video that I made previously. But just a quick overview, people who maybe not heard about it. The 15,000 jobs represent more than 15% of its total workforce. If you want to say that you're trimming the fat or you're just doing routine maintenance or whatever the heck you want to say, and that equates to 1 or 2% of the workforce, okay, maybe. And obviously it depends on the size of the company, but any way you look at it, 15% of a total workforce is a lot of people. And that's not just getting rid of underperformers, that's a serious cry for help there. And it said the decision is part of a broader strategy to reduce spending by $10 billion by 2025. And we're not talking about a 30-year plan here. We're talking about trying to cut $10 billion. I mean, this isn't 3 or 4,000, this is $10 billion by next year. So it's not like a 10-year plan to streamline things. This is how do we make major corrections and major updates in a short amount of time. And then it says that it's following a poor earnings report and outlook for the second quarter. The chief executive officer attributed the company's revenue growth issues to high expenses and narrow profit margins, despite Intel's historical dominance in the CPU chip maker over the past 25 years. And everything we've gone over with Intel just looks like a company that really is rudderless. It has no direction. It has no idea what they're doing. We've gone over so many organizations since we first talked about Intel here on this channel, and all of them are making changes. They're changing CEOs, they're changing other C-levels, they're investing in different things, but Intel really doesn't seem like they're doing much. All they're going to try to do is lay off the hardworking people who are helping them, just doing their jobs, and that's about it. No changes at the top, no other significant changes that could really lead the company in the right direction. And it just seems to be another company that's just resting on their laurels and just waiting around to, I don't know, get bought or just dissolve, who really knows. But I mean, we see all the good and positive things that NVIDIA is doing, and we just don't see really anything good happening with Intel. We read about them and they're just now getting into AI, they're just now getting into, I think, GPUs and other things that they should have been getting into a long time ago. And it could really just fall the way of, Blockbuster or these other companies that we've known for so long, been a big part of our culture, that no longer exists one day, or at least exists in a completely different manner. Another big time company struggling that we've talked about before here on the channel is Cisco. And this says Cisco to lay off around 6,000 employees. And from the numbers that we saw that Cisco laid off 4,000 employees, I think around February. And then they plan to release another 4,000 employees later on this year or by the end of the year. So that's 8,000 employees in one calendar year, which is obviously not a good thing. And the article says Cisco Systems is cutting its global workforce by approximately 7%, affecting around 6,000 employees as it shifts focus towards high growth areas like AI, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. This marks Cisco's second major round of layoffs this year. So if these numbers are up to date, and I only saw this article from yesterday as of recording this, then maybe that's the 6,000 plus the 4,000. So we might be up to 10,000 people being laid off as opposed to quote unquote just 8,000. CEO Chuck Robbins remains positive about a potential rebound in demand for Cisco's networking solutions. The company is redirecting its efforts towards emerging technologies, having pledged $1 billion for investments in AI startups and recently acquiring the cybersecurity firm Splunk for $28 billion. And as we talked about before, it's not that Cisco is completely running out of money. It's not that they have no money to do anything and they're just tightening their belts and doing whatever they can to just minimize the amount they're spending. If they're spending, $28 billion on this company Splunk, I mean, what happens to all these employees that are getting let go? Seriously, none of the people that you hired, you went through this whole process of potentially 5 to 7 rounds of interviews, and now you're just letting these people go? Are you trying to grow Splunk? I mean, don't any of these employees have transferable skills that can go to this new organization? Or is this just a way to spend more money, but then also still cut costs in an effort to just consolidate roles, right? A lot of times with mergers and acquisitions, not saying that this is that, but if you do have a merger and acquisition, you see that you have multiple companies, at least 2, and then you go on and you say that, oh, well, some of these people are doing the same jobs, so let's get rid of any sort of duplicates in the workforce and skills. So maybe they're saying, all right, well, with Splunk and Cisco, maybe we'll take some of the people in Splunk and have them do some of the existing work of our current existing Cisco employees. Who really knows? But yeah, it's not like they're running out of money. They're just investing in other areas. And for people right now to get laid off is just a true crime because it's so hard to find a new job. So just getting laid off so that the company can invest in a different organization that, you don't work for is really, really sad. We haven't talked about IBM previously, so let's see what's going on with them. The article says that IBM lays off 1,000 employees. IBM is closing its research and development facilities in China, leading to the layoff of more than 1,000 staff, according to a Chinese media source. The decision comes as IBM faces a drop in IT hardware demand and struggles with its expansion efforts in China, a market that once offered considerable promise and a strong business foundation outside the US. And you guys could say, well, it's outside of the country. I don't really care about that. But I mean, these companies are global, so how they're doing in other countries still affects how they're doing in the USA. But let's move on if you only care about US-based jobs. Another company is GoPro, which, as someone who's done vlogging and recorded things under the water, like swimming with whale sharks and doing snorkeling and things like that, I've used GoPro a lot in my life. So let's see what's going on with GoPro. GoPro, a leading producer of action cameras, has announced a restructuring strategy that will cut its workforce roughly 15%, equating to around 140 jobs. The downsizing is expected to be completed by the end of 2024. And with how often I've used GoPro, I really thought that they were a bigger company. Apparently, they're not as big as I thought because 15% of their workforce is 140 jobs. So as we said earlier, no matter what the size of the company is, it might not affect as many people, but having to lay off 15% of your workforce is a really terrible sign of the future and what's to come. Apple lays off 100 employees. Apple has recently laid off around 100 employees from its services division, affecting teams related to the Apple Books app and Apple Bookstore. The reductions also included engineering positions. This move is part of Apple's strategic shift towards prioritizing AI initiatives, leading to a de-emphasis on Apple Books. Earlier this year, Apple cut around 600 jobs in its Special Projects Group due to the discontinuation of certain projects. Additionally, in January, the company disbanded a 121-member AI team in San Diego. And I understand that the US is an at-will employer and that these people can be laid off anytime. Trust me, I know from firsthand experience, even if you do sign a contract, you could still be let go at any time. But hopefully for these people, just having empathy and compassion for my fellow man, I really hope that they had like short contracts and didn't think that they were going to be there long term if Apple is invested in these different initiatives and they turn out not to be fruitful and they're just terminating it, right? Because I don't know, I've never been in this situation, but you watch TV shows and people like in teaching and science and research seem to have long-term contracts like, oh, I'm gonna go study here for 6 months or a year, and then at the end of that contract, the employer can decide whether they wanna continue it or not. But tech is a completely different landscape. You can have a 1-year contract and they can let you go in 8-9 months. So even a company like Apple is doing layoffs as well. Not as big of a scale, but anybody losing their job is an actual real person, right? I mean, we sometimes may get caught up in just numbers and get desensitized to even one person losing their job. But I mean, one person is another human being, and that's a whole family that is going to be struggling going forward. So 100 people is a lot of people to suddenly lose their job, even if it's not as crazy as 15,000 people. Dell cuts jobs in sales teams. Dell Technologies is restructuring its sales teams and introducing a new group dedicated to AI. According to a memo from sales leaders, Dell is enhancing efficiency by simplifying its management structure and reallocating its investments. The company has laid off 12,500 employees, or 10% of its global workforce. So if we can come up with any sort of strategy or game plan from what we're seeing here, if you are in sales or any kind of tech sales especially, you want to be brushing up on how the heck you can go and sell AI technologies, because we see right here a Dell sales team completely getting gutted and then being replaced by an AI sales team or a group dedicated to AI. So hopefully these salespeople who were released can start studying up. I really don't know what it takes. Let me know down in the comments below if you know what it takes to be a top level AI salesperson. But anything associated with AI, even if it's not the future and the promise that the hype is about, just having sort of AI skills or AI experience on your resume should hopefully make you stand out and get you more opportunities than the average worker in tech. Our next article is from Reuters. So let's get a snapshot of what's happening outside of technology, because unfortunately the layoffs are not structured and centered in just one sector. The headline is, U.S. planned layoffs surge in August, recruitment firm Challenger says. U.S. employers in August unveiled the greatest number of layoffs in 5 months, led by cuts in the technology sector amid a cloudy outlook for growth and ongoing cost concerns. A monthly tally of workforce reduction announcements showed on Thursday. Firm announced 75,891 layoffs last month, roughly triple the number in July and the largest month-to-month increase in a year, outplacement firm Challenger, Gray, and Christmas said. Still, announced staff reductions are down 3% year to date. I mean, those are some big numbers. So staff reductions are down 3% year to date, which is the only positive number there, but 75,891 people got laid off. It's one thing if you leave a company on your own terms, you're leaving to go get a brand new job, hopefully with higher pay, with good benefits, with a company that you're excited about. But just to be fired, I mean, let's call it what it is, From out of the blue, 75,891 people in 1 month. Terrible. And that's triple the number in July. So July wasn't good, and we weren't very optimistic after the month of July, and then August is 3 times worse. I mean, we're literally going in the wrong direction at record speed. And then they say that's the largest month-to-month increase in a year. Well, yeah, I mean, not good out for so many people, not just a technology thing. The article goes on to say, August surge in job cuts reflects growing economic uncertainty and shifting market dynamics. Companies are facing a variety of pressures, from rising operational costs to concerns about a potential economic slowdown, leading them to make tough decisions about workforce management. The data comes amid a growing concerns about the job market, as recent government reports have shown increases in unemployment rate and in the number of layoffs in July. The softening tone to employment data has caught the eyes of Federal Reserve policymakers, who are now expected to kick off interest rate cuts this month to protect the job market from a rapid deterioration. More than half of August's cuts announcements were in the tech sector, totaling 39,563, up sharply from around 6,000 in July and the most since January 2023. The health sector had the next largest announced layoffs at 6,158. So back to what we were talking about in the opening. What is going to be the solution for all these layoffs? Because it doesn't seem like any politician thinks that we have a problem. They're just reading the stats that everything is good. And even though the politician says they go out and talk to the average Joe out there, they can't be if they think that everything is fine, everything is good. Prices of everything show no signs of going down. In fact, most companies are still trying to figure out how to raise prices to battle the costs that they have in labor and materials and shipping. And I don't think we've seen one example of any sort of major company doing a bunch of hirings and growing, and maybe they're just being cautious and being conservative until after the election. But what if they're not? What if, even no matter what happens early next year, we still don't see any sort of relief? I mean, what is the way out of this mess, this huge hole that we're in when it comes to the amount of jobs out there? Unfortunately, I don't have the answer, and I don't really have any solutions for you today. I just wanted to share this news and this information, and to go over what's going on in 2024 and what's happening with this layoff catastrophe that is not just staying the same, it's actually getting worse. Talk to you later.